Hey guys, how y'all doing today? My name is the Jazz Shepherd. I'm Dan. Got a little episode coming for you today. Today we're on episode 14, the last of the 3 Chicago labels we're going to talk about. We covered Argo, great stuff. We covered Emercy, which is part of the Mercury group, and I think they're really the unheralded champion of jazz in this late 50s era. They really deserve more credit. Now we're going to move on to Vee Jay. They were founded by a couple. I think they were founded in northern Indiana, but they were loosely out of Chicago area, and they borrow some of the same musicians as Argo and Emercy as well. This is a case of the first label, I think, that was rather small and I thought insignificant. Whereas I dug deeper into artist discographies, in particular artists from Blue Note, you're like, oh shit, they have a couple records on Vee Jay. And you know about the Prestige and Riverside pretty early on as you dig into the hard bop era. But you don't really hear about Vee Jay as a label necessarily, and for most rock historians, you're going to know Vee Jay as the label that issued the Beatles record, because Capitol in America passed. And so the old Vee Jay records of the Beatles are kind of what Vee Jay is known for. But I decided to buy a few of the records I needed to have on this label, and the next thing you know, I realized it was a pretty small discography that it just made sense to reach out and grab most of the 3000 series. It's only about 35 records in total. I think the most important thing to start with here is the great bass player Paul Chambers didn't get a lot of records as a leader. Blue Note makes 3, I believe. He has 2 on Vee Jay. And this is one of my favorite album covers in jazz history. I just think it's a great album cover, and just love the way that feels. Speaks to the era. This is his second album, Play on Baseball, first baseman. You know, and he probably was the first baseman when it comes to studio bass players in that era. And there's a lot of greats, you know. But Chambers, his discography as a sideman, it's like 6 pages in my book of records he was on. It's insane how many records he was on. If you had every record Paul Chambers played on through the 50s and 60s, you would have a pretty impressive collection. I'll just say that. I have most of them. Wynton Kelly, he was another guy that I'm like, oh, he's got some records on Vee Jay. So I had to go dig in, and this is a couple of them, and there's a couple more as well. I'm playing one right now, a Japanese reissue thing that was never issued in America. So when the Japanese start reissuing your label, you know you've done something that's of some significance. The Wynton Kellys and the Paul Chambers, can't recommend them enough. They don't go for huge money. Now, this was probably the guy that I was most excited to dig into Vee Jay for, and that was the Lee Morgan stuff. I found a beautiful old copy of this for $30 in some little rural town in Minnesota. Couldn't believe it. The Young Lions record. If you look at the band on that, Lee Morgan with Wayne Shorter, Frank Strozier, Louis Hayes, Bobby Timmons, Bob Cranshaw, and Albert Heath. That's freaking royalty, you know what I'm saying? And then Expubitant, which has Eddie Higgins, Blakey Davis, and Cliff Jordan on tenor, another Chicago cat playing with Morgan. So those 3 Morgan records are kind of a solid, yeah, you gotta get Vee Jay. And then one of the greats in jazz that's still with us, the great Wayne Shorter, has 2 records on Vee Jay as well. So again, we're seeing this is Blue Note caliber artists, and maybe these records aren't quite to the degree of the Blue Note records, perhaps, but I don't know how many people would put headphones on and be able to tell the difference just by the sound or the musicians. Like, it's top-notch hard bop, those records. A few of the things that Vee Jay was kind of known for, the Walter Perkins stuff, the MJT3, more Walter Perkins. This Frank Strozier record, he's one of the great old trumpet players that people kind of overlook a lot. More MJT3 plus 3. Great stuff. Again, as we talked with in Emercy, there's an immigration in America that's happening. So you guys got guys like Ira Sullivan here. And then probably the biggest artist in terms of releases on Vee Jay was a guy named Eddie Harris, who will know more from his Atlantic stuff in the late 60s and 70s. But he has probably 8 records, maybe 9, 10 records on Vee Jay. And they're all pretty great players playing. He's playing more trad jazz here than he is with the electric kind of, you know, mixing it up on the Atlantic stuff. And the great Louis Hayes. This record you can stumble on in a record store for $10. You should grab this. Look at who plays with him. Nat Adderley, Yusuf Lateef, Barry Harris, Sam Jones, and Louis Hayes. This record was really good. I really enjoyed it. He was a great little drummer. So Vee Jay is a small label. Their jazz imprint wasn't broad, but they sneak a couple dozen records into the jazz canon. That's a pretty good batting average. You know, you might not have the career numbers of a Babe Ruth, but you pitched your team to a World Series, so you might get in the Hall of Fame on that. I'm the Jazz Shepherd. Check out Vee Jay Records. Coming up after this, we're going to go out west and talk about fantasy, contemporary, and Pacific Jazz Records. All three of those are great labels, and they do have definitely have a different feel. But in spite of playing some great tempos and some great musicianship, it still feels different than the East Coast intensity. And we'll dig into that next week when we get there. Y'all have a great week. Be safe. I'm the Jazz Shepherd. Peace.